Take two. Hi, everyone. We're just waiting for Bonnie from Ghost Flower to join. I think it said that you may need to update your Instagram version. I didn't even know there was a version update, but okay, let me try this again. It says Ghost Flower must upgrade app in order to join. So that's the message I see from my side. Yeah, I think, Bonnie, you need the latest version of Instagram. I'm trying again, but I don't think... Yeah, I actually can invite you. Okay. I'm starting. Okay, sure. Without Bonnie. Well, okay, we will wait for Bonnie to join in the meantime. And this is a talk about all the different foods for spring and how to start this spring with a liver refresh. So we've partnered up with Ghost Flower to talk about all the cool things for spring and liver. And all right, let's see if this works.
There we go.
It's working.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Sorry, a little technical blip. We got it though.
All normal.
All normal. I love it. That's what we do with the wood element. We stay flexible, right? Just create
Yes,
strategy to get things
we
done.
must. Yeah. It's
Thank.
so weird. I've never seen it say like you need an Instagram update. I don't even know what that means.
I know, so weird. It kind of did it to Kata and I the other day, and then it was fine. So I didn't
Okay.
know I needed an update, but now we're
Yeah,
updated. So it's great. Yeah.
exactly.
How is
Yay.
for the sea?
Good.
It looks springy face with your flowers.
Lots of spring, yes. These are some peonies that are blooming and half wilting on the side, but yes, it's definitely very springy here.
Oh, good. Yeah. I feel like as I'm outside, I'm like receiving the spring energy, like staring at the tulips and the blossoms and the little buds. I'm like trying to imagine that energy kind of being invoked in my whole body so I can kind of wait
Yeah,
last crazy year.
definitely. Totally. Still continuing. Still the crazy, still here.
Yeah. Thanks so much for joining us from ORA for our spring refresh. Ghost Flower has been hosting, starting yesterday, a 7-day mild cleanse. It's not really even a cleanse, it's more just a reset, kind of invigorating our bodies and waking up from the hibernation of winter, eating lots of springtime foods. And that's what we're going to talk about today, which I'm so excited to pick your brain and get your knowledge. Um,
Yes.
but yeah, Ghost Flower, we're an activewear brand. If you all out there at Aura's audience are new to us, we love Chinese medicine. We mapped it out on our clothing somewhat, like some key acupressure points and some of the meridians on our clothes, so you can kind of find that meridian roadmap on an external way on your body.
So cool.
Yeah, but we have been so thankful to Aura partnering with us during this refresh, and I'm sure everyone on my audience would love to know what you guys are all about.
Yeah, so I am day one of three ORA representatives who will be on various lives. So ORA is a beautiful acupuncture studio space in downtown Manhattan, New York. So if anyone's in New York, please go have a visit and have a transformational experience. It is definitely, if acupuncture, if you've never tried acupuncture, that should be your first
Mm,
experience. So you can make sure you have a good one, because I always know people may not have the best experience and then they're forever afraid, which is such a shame. So yeah, check out Aura for all the healing. So yeah.
absolutely. I can't wait to go. I think I'm going to go this week for a sesh if we can swoop me in during the
Oh,
refresh.
nice.
Great
Yeah,
thing.
you can hang out with everyone there
Yeah.
with
And
masks.
we're on our spring refresh while we're cleansing a little bit, get a little extra support, all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm super excited to talk more about this theme, especially for spring and for liver. So maybe I'll just jump right in. So spring, if you know, just to step back before we go all into foods, spring
Mhm.
is the first yang season of the 5 seasons of Chinese elements. So we have 5 seasons, not four. And it's really important because it sets up our bodies for the rest of the year. So everything is yang and then yin and yang, and everything is kind of in this ever flow. But it's really important to know that this is the first one. So it's great to kind of kick off all of this elemental introduction, if you didn't know what that was before, with the first element, which is spring. And why I think it's super interesting and important to focus on this element, because the liver is representing the organ of spring, and also the liver is more of the organ that's focused for the modern human, which means that it's most prone to stagnation or stress or some kind of chi blockage. So I don't know how many people know what liver chi blockage is, but at Aura we did a huge chi reset earlier in the year, so that was really fun just to get everyone acclimated with the concept of chi. But when it comes to chi stagnation, liver is totally the organ that is most prone to blockage. So
Right.
we'll talk all about the foods. But yeah, I just also love that at Ghost Flower you can shop by element, which is so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the different colors are so beautiful too.
Right. And liver and gallbladder are the organs associated with spring and also the wood element. So we're focusing on wood this week, and in five element theory, each of the elements has a different resonance or energy. And so one of one of the organs processes is to handle stress. Would you say that's why the liver is kind of the modern day organ that we should focus on? Or what's
Totally.
reasons why the liver is the modern day organ?
Yeah, well, definitely stress, and also intoxication from everything, whether it's alcohol or prescription medication,
Pollution.
or just, yeah, lots of, and now we have to be more mindful, of course, about the things that are in our foods. I think over time, the liver has become more of this modern focus, whereas ancient Chinese medicine literature has maybe focused more on other things, making sure people have enough nutrients to support their bodies. Now that's not so much of the focus. Now it's managing the foods we're eating and also managing the stress and the over mental activity that comes with it as well.
That's such a good designation between modern and traditional, and how to apply the medicine in a new way.
Yeah.
That's so,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so usually in spring, when we talk about foods for spring, this is before we, look at what is an imbalance of your liver. Just general foods for spring are usually really awakening because this is after a long winter. Your body is still in this sluggish, heavy, dark kind of, inwards. Your energy is really inwards. And so now is okay to introduce some foods like tender greens, fresh, I don't want to say all raw ingredients, but this is probably the only time I would recommend some raw ingredients to kind of stimulate this freshness, this youngness. Um, yeah, I will definitely talk more about recommendations for bloating and the reasons for it. But in general, if we just, talk about overall balance for spring, it's to kind of awaken the body. And we can also invite some ingredients like sour tastes. So each element and each organ have a color, flavor, according to Chinese five element theory. And so for the liver, it's a sour taste, meaning that it also supports the liver naturally in making sure that there's enough bile and these juices to break down any heavy meats, etc. And also, it's very common during this time, similar to Ramadan, which just started today, not a Chinese holiday, but there's a lot of fasting going on. So it's also a time to kind of take a break from heavy meats and heavy oils, just eating lighter, for this time. My rule of thumb always with these fasting or changing your diet, it should really be for a period of time before you really, prolong it into kind of a lifestyle.
Yeah.
I think with each season, it's good to think about what's important for that time. And then, maybe going back into your normal routine before that moment. Right now it's spring, definitely introducing those young, fresh, more pungent things that are waking up the body because we are going into yang season. And that means that the body can also combat yang flavors. Whereas when we're in yin season, it's a little bit more difficult for our bodies to process that energy. So we may feel like overly awakened when we should be in this, inner energy. So yeah, those are
And
just some
what
tips.
what would some yang foods be?
So I love right now, I've been eating a lot of cucumbers with baby alfalfa sprouts. So
Yeah.
what I love about this is that this is also like a germinated grain. So you can actually make this yourself if you have the time. If not, I'm sure you can find it in a lot of places.
Yeah.
But it also has a little bit of a bitter taste. So before I mentioned sour, but what I want to talk about next is some common liver imbalances, which more or less a lot of us have some kind of imbalance likely, or it's happening every day on a micro level. But if we can eat foods, we can keep it more in check. So foods like alfalfa are bitter, which can clear heat, which is also a really common sign for liver. So if you know someone that maybe has like a irritability or a hot red complexion or red eyes, or maybe they're like really hot-headed and you're like, I didn't do anything to you, but something, you didn't wake up on the right side of bed. They
Yeah.
definitely have some kind of liver heat.
Yeah.
And so to counter balance that, we like to eat more bitter things such as this alfalfa, also arugula or cucumber, which are all more cooling ingredients, and that can bring down the heat from the liver.
Right. Like someone's feeling kind of inflamed, irritated, they're going to want to have those cooling foods to kind of
Yeah.
quell that heat. Gotcha.
And I see someone asked, what's TCM? That's traditional Chinese medicine. So that's a word, that's a mouthful. So we like to say TCM, but it's traditional Chinese medicine, which is different than modern Chinese medicine. A whole other discussion, but yes,
And many
traditional Chinese medicine.
like, yeah, that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah.
Well, maybe so what if someone's craving a lot of sour foods? I know you said that
Ooh.
liver produce bile. So if someone's craving lemon, citrus, limes, and or maybe even vinegars, what's that?
Yeah, yeah, I love that question. I actually think that, at least from the Chinese medicine diagnosis point of view, we definitely look at f flavor cravings based on those five elements, five organs, five tastes. This one being the liver and sour. If someone is craving more sour flavors, that can mean that their liver may need some extra support.
Mhm.
So definitely listen. I always recommend listening to those cravings. And especially what's interesting is that for the sour flavor, sometimes when the liver is not working well, it can also impact the stomach and the spleen just by nature of how the liver meridian passes through the body. It's not just the liver organ, but the whole meridian itself. And so that's when we kind of go into more of the relationships to liver, which is maybe more advanced. But I also want to point out if someone is craving sweet things, for example, that can also be something from the liver because the sweet is for the stomach. And like I mentioned before, the way the meridians pass through the body, sometimes it can have a um, yeah, like a interactive effect. One goes down, the other also. So, yeah, there's sometimes, I definitely think listening to those cravings can be really telling to what organs need more support or some need more balance. So, things like that.
So have those little clues, even if you didn't have a practitioner kind of helping you hone in, just kind of knowing that for yourself is so helpful.
Yeah.
Ask one more question, and maybe hopefully this is clear, but if we're not having cravings for sour foods per se, but we still know that those foods kind of support the liver, having a little bit of lemon here and there, but maybe not overdoing it. What's kind of the right amount of sour to help the liver produce the bile and work through the fats and break down the lipids, etc.? Like, what's a good amount of that kind of citrus or any other kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing?
Yeah, so I think it really depends on what you're eating. If you're eating something that's more heavy, like a meat or more greasy items, I would say incorporate more citrusy, maybe like sauerkraut or something
Yeah.
pickled on the side to aid with the digestion of those foods. If you're having some lighter meals, like don't break your back to have a sour component to your meal. But definitely thinking about how is the food sitting in my body? Is this something that I digest easily? Maybe you just totally don't digest this well, but you're eating out. So you can also go for something sour to aid some of that bloating, like someone mentioned before. The bloating, it can be different things, whether it's eating something that's not really right for you, but most of the time, the sour flavor can be really great at breaking down hard to digest, oily, heavier foods.
Right.
So I think thinking about your meal and going from there.
That's so helpful. I love that. Yeah, and how we built the refresh the meal guide is there's definitely a little bit extra on the citrus this week just to kind of boost the liver and help it clear out all that fatty stuff that could be happening. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's really fun to understand that for our audience. And then greens. I mean, there's lots of green things happening. It's kind of so fun to just see how what's nature's producing right now. It's like we used to, as a species, go out and forage for dandelion greens because really they're kind of all over the globe. And dandelions is that bitter, that green, that cleansing, like you said, kind of moving out of the sluggish foods of winter and moving into refreshing the body. So we've been eating a lot of greens this week. Do you have any more suggestions for us about how we can prepare greens? Like how much raw versus cooked greens? Like, is there a good ratio?
Mm. Yeah, so right now for spring, the way we cook foods should also change. So
Right.
in winter, it's more of this longer, really long in the
Oh,
oven, on the stove for, like a day.
yeah,
Now we should be really aiming to steam things, still keeping things warm,
yeah,
but cooking things for a lighter amount of time and then making them a little bit more light as well. So not super heavy, but keep making sure it's warm. And
right.
so I think slowly as we move away from this, winter body mode, we'll notice also our bodies want to go outside more. So the what temperature is warmer, and naturally we want to eat less of those heavier winter foods and gravitate more towards springy, fresh, lighter things. Yeah.
Love. Yeah, so great. I had one more question pop in my head. Oh, I think, this is not totally off topic, but since we're talking about like raw versus cooked, um, how we're transitioning out of winter, I think a lot of people confuse the idea of eating vegetables with eating a lot of raw stuff. And there's definitely a TCM perspective around this. And sometimes if we eat a lot of raw, we actually turn out to feel really bloated and having a hard time with digestion. I call it swamp gut because I've experienced it myself.
Yeah.
But do you have any suggestions around that? Or
Yes.
yes,
There is a whole
yeah,
spiel that I can go on, but I will reel it in.
narrow it down.
Yes, my recommendations for eating raw and want you to eat more raw, or maybe trying to figure out being healthy and raw and bloated. Generally in TCM, we really recommend that you eat things warm. Definitely no ice things, because what it does is you're just creating a lot of digestive energy that now needs to like cook this thing inside of your body. So instead of your stove cooking it, your body is cooking it, which
Right.
makes all of this energy from the spleen and stomach get consumed. And over time, what happens is the energy starts to get really sluggish and it's really slow. And now it's like accumulated, maybe a week's worth of iced coffees. I don't know. But over time, that kind of starts to impair other things such as bloating, or we have weird poop, or the works. So to balance that, or to find the right way to balance it, maybe if you have to have a cold drink, try to, well, first I would ask myself, why do I always need to drink cold things? Because that's already a Chinese medicine diagnosis
Right.
pointer. So that might be something to look into.
Right.
But I also think if you can maybe have a smoothie that's not iced, you can leave it on the counter after you make it and let it kind of defrost a little. That
Right.
already helps a lot. Having things at room temperature instead of immediately out of the fridge and onto your plate and into the body. So
Yeah.
giving yourself like 10 to 15 minutes between fridge and mouth.
If I
Or drinking a digestive warm tea
mhm.
with the food that you're eating that's raw and a little bit colder, to kind of at least bring something to help warm up the stomach, because then it's not just completely relying on your body temperature to cook everything. So,
Love
yeah.
that. I just posted yesterday if I am eating a raw salad, I always try to have it earlier in the day until it's like the heat of summer. I always
Yeah.
it's out on the counter at least a half an hour before I eat it. And I don't know
Nice.
out there, I know lots of people did the electrolyte lemonade, which really actually is my way of tricking people into trying a warm smoothie. And people were like, it sounded really gross, but it was good. It's like actually really yummy to have a warm.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
I see a question here. What herbs do you recommend for bloating? Actually, a really good one, depending on your constitution, but in general, I would recommend maybe a fresh ginger slice in a warm cup of water. Super simple. That can be on the side of your meal, because ginger is something that's warming up the stomach. Also, if you have it with warm water, it's temperature wise, but on its own, ginger is a really warming, stimulating, blood circulating ingredients. So that can kind of help move things along when everything's a bit slow from bloating or cold foods.
Yeah. So, are you going to show us a little bit about this amazing stew that you've prepared to show us about?
Yes.
Questions, and I'm going to save all these for the end.
Okay.
Um,
Cool.
yeah, and I'll kind of take care of that for us.
So the recipe that I prepared, I'll show a little bit of what I've got going on, and I will say that I cheated a bit because I started in a slow cooker. This ceramic slow cooker has changed my life. So if anyone wants to eat warm things but does not want to stand next to the stove all day long to take care of your meals, slow cooker with ceramic lining. And I'll just show you, how do I, okay, I'm going to turn this around. So as you can see, I've already started to soak the grains in here, but the main hero ingredient in this recipe are the mung beans. And it's probably a little bit hard to see right now, but there are definitely a lot of green little beans in here.
Yummy.
And mung beans are super cooling and really great for clearing what I mentioned before, the heat from the body that might be caused by the liver. Um, on its own, really, it's amazing, but I made it into this kind of stew because I added some other ingredients that I'll talk more about. But mung bean is a great ingredient also for warmer days. So it's not just for now, but also really common in also in summer. So it looks like this.
Yeah.
And actually, these guys are the sprouts for bean sprouts. Like if you guys ever buy tajay or bean sprouts that you put into, I don't know, a satay or something,
Yeah.
you can make them yourself. But anyway, obviously I'm a sprout nerd. So I sprout all of my greens because it allows for the grains to be more easily cooked and absorbed and digested by your body. So usually what I do is I soak these overnight in a mix. Mung bean with lentils or garbanzo beans. But for this recipe, I'd like to focus on the mung bean because of its cooling properties. Also, it's very yin nourishing. So a lot of bringing down any inflammation from the liver, assuming that, you know, that's what we want to focus on. And if not, that's why there's also other ingredients such as the lentils and the chickpeas or garbanzo beans to kind of even everything out. But that ingredient is more cooling.
Yeah.
And then what I add in there, after I let it soak and I let everything kind of cook in my slow cooker,
Mhm.
I add this super cool potato looking thing. It's not a potato, but it kind of is in the starchy family.
Uh,
This is a mountain yam, and it's got
yeah.
these really weird, hairy things on the skin. But on
Right.
this inside, when you peel it, it's actually white. And this is super strengthening for the spleen. And what you can do is just peel everything and then cut it into finger-sized or inch-sized shapes and just throw it into the stew, maybe like 40 minutes before you're ready to eat it. And that's really simple. I mean, that's basically the meat of the stew. And
Yeah.
what I like about introducing this ingredient is that it's also strengthening the stomach and spleen, which I mentioned before, can be impaired if the liver is kind of, yeah, sluggish or tired or something like that. So this is a mountain yam. And also, it's sold sometimes in a dried format because it's also a traditional Chinese medicinal ingredient used in herbal medicine formulas. But
Mhm.
the fresh one is better for food. So you can find it in a Chinese grocery store. They might look a little bit bigger. These are the only ones I can find in Amsterdam. So they're like the micro version. Usually the ones I buy in New York are much wider. So
Oh,
don't
wow.
be afraid.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep my eyes peeled for that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And yeah, so basically with the stew, I just let all of the greens simmer, and then once it's done, after I've cooked it down, I add the mountain yam, and I like to add some fresh, tender greens on top just to invite some young freshness. And yeah, I like I mentioned before, although we are moving into a less stewy, less, warm food or less heavy food, I still want to emphasize eating warm things no matter what time of year, because usually our bodies can really benefit from it. So
Right. Give our bodies a break on that. That's
yeah,
I can't wait to make that. I'm gonna make that tonight for my spring refresh dinner.
cool.
We had a couple questions. One is what kind of young raw foods should we be eating? Like, would it be berries? I know in Santa Barbara we are already having berries in season, but in New York they're not in season. So it would
Yeah.
find it in, and that's really a fire element food, which is our next season on the docket.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I would stay more in the cooling category, so and also the bitter category. And I think right now asparagus should be the
Yeah,
first official, tip of spring. So
right.
I think that is definitely really great detoxing and something that you can steam lightly. So yeah.
Perfect. And someone asked, are there any good foods for lymph swelling in the neck?
Lymph swelling in the neck. So usually any swelling, it could be water retention. I really have to get a better idea of whether this is something that's prolonged or,
Right.
current. But I would recommend to avoid foods like spicy foods or fried foods or anything that can, or seafood actually, anything that can cause an additional inflammation.
Mm,
So that's what I usually recommend is to don't eat, but I would have to kind of understand exactly the condition.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Friends in Aura space right now say they need an iced coffee anonymous group. That's and M Kids. I don't know how to say your name. Sorry. She says her body reacts better when the food is warm. For sure. Me too.
Yeah, I feel so satisfied, and especially I start my morning every day with a porridge,
Hmm.
and I just feel so whole. And I actually feel like I don't eat so much, but it's very filling. I think the warm foods also expand in your belly, so it's really
Right.
nice.
Jamie asks, do you soak your beans overnight?
Yes, I soak everything. Beans, rice, grains, seeds, nuts. Yeah, and you can just mix everything together. So for this recipe, I really took equal parts mung bean, lentil, chickpeas, and I put them in the pot, and right now they're in the slow cooker. And I actually soaked it in there, and then the next morning I rinse out the water, and then I add just another fresh pot of water, and I kind of let it cook until it's ready. So yeah,
Yeah, perfect. Oh my
yeah,
gosh, amazing. It looks like we're good on our questions here. And if anyone has anything else they want to share, have a desire or a question, now's the time. Um, but that was so fun, Jen. I love learning from you. Thank you for sharing all your knowledge.
yeah. Yeah, soak all the beans.
For sure. Soak those beans. Um, Make sure you follow us at Good Flower and at Aura Space. Always tons of educational information going on both those platforms. And so, yeah, we'll tomorrow we're with Aura's acupuncturist Sion, and she's going to give us an in-depth wood theory 101. So we'll get a little bit more info on the liver and the gallbladder, and what that means as a modern human.
Yeah, that
uh,
sounds so fun. You're in great hands.
yeah. Well, thanks again, Jen. I hope you rest up. I know it's late there. We have
Yes.
more questions. Sorry. Jessica asked any recommendations for chi building in the spleen?
Yes. So, I don't have that ingredient here, but the ingredient I just showed, the fresh one, is a super great spleen boosting one,
Mm-hmm.
the mountain yam, but also Chinese jujubes or azuki beans, or otherwise known as red beans. Those ones are two really great dried ingredients that you can easily find anywhere that you can make into a porridge. And I think we also have the recipe maybe on our ORA, ORA page that you can find. But those are always my go-to for chi boosting, because spleen is really with blood and nourishment and yeah, those kinds of energy supporting things. Very important. So,
Yeah. And I love a yellow pumpkin for that too, like a
oh
kabocha.
yeah.
Yeah, not really seasoned for it, but you can probably go around.
Yeah.
Um, oh, and if anyone wants to read through Jen's recipe, it's up on the Ghost Flower blog, our website, in the recipe section. So you can find her recipe there. Fabulous, Jen.
Ah,
Much. It was so fun.
yes. All right. Enjoy, everyone. Happy eating greens and all the things.
Yeah. Happy eating. Ciao.
Yes. Talk soon. Bye.